Sorry for keeping you waiting, but first of all I'd like to welcome you all here to West London Motor Group's premises here in Slough. My name is Andy Ackley. I'm here on behalf of Nissan Motor GB to talk to you about GTR. This is the latest GTR. It's the enhanced GTR, or what we call model year 11. Now there are some people here I would like to say thank you to. First of all, it's the sales manager, Abid. Thank you for your hospitality, Abid. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank or introduce you to Gurpit over there, or G. He's our GTR specialist here, and also to Indy here. Now, when did I last see you, Indy? Where did I last see you? Bruntingthorpe. And why were you at Bruntingthorpe? Why were you at Bruntingthorpe? One of the top technicians in the country, the top 30. Okay, now he's actually, what sort of speeds have you, at Bruntingthorpe by the way, it's a test track, and it's about, they've got 2 mile long straights. What sort of speed were you driving this at? 150. 150, and the professional driver?
If you want to drive it, it's not allowed to, but yeah, they do it.
You did it, alright. So not only are you in very good hands here, but also you've got some actually experience at driving at high speed. So there you go, Indy. Well done for that. Alright. Now, about this car. Now, the man, Mr. GTR in Japan, when he launched this car at the Tokyo Motor Show in 2007, in October 2007, he said it would take at least 3 years to truly fine-tune this car into the car he really wanted it to be. And this is what it's done. Now, when you look at the car itself, you think, well, nothing much has changed. So it's not really selling itself very hard as an enhanced car, but there are many, many subtle changes, and it has made a significant difference on how this car performs. Now, first of all, we're only going to sell it as a GTR. We're not going to have a premium edition or a black edition. It'll just be GTR. There'll be 2 different interior trims. You can have either the Recaro bucket seats of the type that you see in this vehicle, or you can choose a premium leather seat in either grey or black. All right. The grey or black premium seats will have a light headlining, whereas the GTR with the Recaro bucket seats will have a black with the red trim, which you can see on this car. The price will be exactly the same. Okay, so you choose which sort of trim you want. Trims are not switchable, by the way. Okay, can't change them around, so it's either the light trim with the premium seats or the Recaro bucket seats with the black lining. Okay, now let's have a look at the front of this car. Slight subtle difference to how we've got the chrome round here on the headlights, as opposed to a sort of an aluminium finish. That's the only visual difference, if you like, from the headlights. Not a performance enhancer, but virtually everything else on this car, subtle though it is, enhances the performance in one way or another. Now, first of all, the grille is much bigger. Okay, it's about 13-14% bigger. When you actually look at this compared to the other GTR we've got outside, you can see, in fact, instead of the grille coming in like here, it pushes out, and this whole area here is a little bit wider. So it allows more air in to cool the engine at high speed. Okay. Now, a significant change, it doesn't look much, but we have these extra ridges here. They don't look much at all. We call them canards or whatever. Got various terms for them. In fact, we've actually cleverly designed in this daytime LED running light into one of them. Now, what they do is they channel air around the side of the car. So when this car is hitting air at high speed, it's actually, rather than hitting it head on as like a brick, it actually pushes it round the side. So it's actually increasing the car's aerodynamic efficiency, particularly at higher speeds. But we've got a secondary element here as well. As it's pushing the air around the side of the car, it pushes it away from the wheels, which means that the air that's inside the engine bay is allowed to escape much more freely. Now, the fact that we've allowed the air to escape much more freely means we're creating almost like a vacuum effect in the car itself, in the engine bay itself. So it's actually creating downforce. So, okay, those subtle little changes, more air coming in, we're allowing it to go out more efficiently, means that we've got a car that's actually not only slippery through the air, it's actually creating downforce at the front. Now, I'm not going to bring you around to the back, but you'll be able to see this in a moment. But at the back of the car, we have what's called a diffuser. You've probably heard about those in Formula One, double diffusers, etc. But the little diffuser we've got at the back actually sticks out about 2 inches more than the one we've got on existing GTR. Now what the effect of that has is that the air that flows over here and the air that flows underneath, instead of being interfered and creating turbulence here, it creates it further back because of this extended diffuser. And because of that, it means all the air that comes off here can slip off much more easily. Okay? Because it can slip off much more easily without being caught up in this turbulence, means we've got a much more slippery car. Now this car has a staggering coefficient of drag of 0.27, or the previous car. Okay? But because of these detailed changes, we've actually reduced the coefficient of drag on this car to 0.26, which is quite phenomenal. I mean, every shape on this car was designed to move air in one way or another. Every single panel, every angle moves air in a certain way. That's why this car looks the way it does. But the fact that we've actually made it slippery, but also we've added downforce of around about 10%, both at the front and the rear, because this car's always been a very well balanced car, both physically and through the downforce that we've generated. But we've created that equal downforce both at the front and rear. Okay, so the benefit of that is that at high speed you get much more stability, both in the straight line, both driving through corners, and of course it just nudges the fuel consumption a little better our way, and also reduces emissions slightly because it's just that much slippery through the air. Okay, now let's have a look underneath the bonnet, see what we've got from changes there. I suppose these are the sort of headline figures that we have in that. First of all, you'll notice the red. That harks back to our R34 Skyline, the red top. Okay, so that's a very obvious way that once the bonnet's up, you can tell that this is one of the upgraded 520 brake horsepower now, up from 475, still at 6,400 RPM. But also we've increased the torque. The torque figure was 435, it's now 450 foot-pounds. But instead of being at 3,200 RPM to 5,200 RPM, we've actually extended that range up to 6,000 RPM. So it's a much flatter, much longer torque curve, which means that you can use the gears more when you're accelerating, you can hang on to them longer, but also when you're driving at just normal speeds, you don't have to change gear as much. You can hang on gears longer because you've got the torque to be able to do that. Having said that, having driven the previous one, this car will actually probably surge to about 6th gear at 40 or 35 miles an hour if you wanted it to, because it's got such fantastic torque anyway. It really has. When I've driven this car in auto, or the previous one in auto, you can get 6th gear at 35, 40 miles an hour. It's that good. Okay, but we've made it even better. All right. Now, how we've done that? Just minor tweaks, that's all. Minor tweaks. We've had some more powerful microprocessors in the engine control module. We've altered the air-fuel mixture ratio. We've got a little bit more boost pressure. Okay, the air inlet pipes we've made a little bit wider. Now, instead of polishing them like you would when we used to tune our motorbikes a long time ago and cars, we've just put a resin coat, which makes it nice and smooth. You don't have to polish it. So we just worked on the engine from that point of view, just detailed changes, changed the cam timing, the variable valve timing, just slightly. So all those areas have given us that extra power. Now, we can't tell you just yet what those headline figures are in terms of 0 to 60 or top speed, but I'm sure some of you have already seen things on the web, but we can't tell you anything. We can't comment possibly on that, because what we're waiting for is our European homologation figures, and then we can actually tell you exactly what it will do. But we are expecting to improve fuel consumption, and we're also expecting that the CO2 emissions are going to come down to something like 275, 278 from the 293, 295, which they are at the moment. So those are significant improvements of how the engine operates. Got a couple of little changes mechanically also with the transmission. In the, as you know, with the transmission on these cars, you can now change it from race to normal to snow mode. Okay, if you have it in auto. With auto, you've got a snow mode, which basically alters the mapping of the engine so it's not quite so brutal when you want to drive forward in very, very slippery conditions, because as you know, this is a very brutal car. But what we've actually done, we've changed that. We call it save mode. Now it has an extra feature now, but this is only operates when it's in auto. It's got an extra feature in that when you're driving at high speed, it will lock up longer, okay, in a high gear. So it's not going to search for lower gears if you've got it in save. It recognises that you want to drive in an economy mode while you're doing sort of motorway cruising. So that's what save mode does. We have another change also, and this is standard whether it's automatic or manual, that if you're driving this car below 6 miles an hour and you put it on half a lock, it will actually disconnect the four-wheel drive transfer box. Because with this car, any of you own GTRs? Okay? Well, if you've driven a GTR very, very slowly, it's like a race horse that wants to take off all the time because all the diffs are binding. You've got 3 diffs on this car. They're all binding, they're all doing something, they're all going, oh, and you can feel it. Every muscle of the car is straining when you try and maneuver it. But with this special default mode, it's only the rear diff that binds slightly. So it's much, much better to maneuver at slower speeds. So that's something that's standard, it's a default mode at 5 or 6 miles an hour below. Okay, now we've got something else on this car. Now that when we first launched this car, people came whispering into my ear, and I did something very, very similar when we first launched the car and kept up coming into whispering in my ear and going, tell us about launch control. Tell us about, and I was going, I don't know anything about launch control. Didn't know anything about launch control, of course, until I saw a couple of weeks later Jeremy Clarkson damaging his neck and talking about launch control. Well, we've never had launch control officially at all, but now we do have something which we are not calling launch control. Okay, we're going to call it something else. We don't know what it is so far, but we're calling it possibly R mode VDC acceleration mode. Okay, that will do. Okay, that's the official line so far. But what it means is it's covered now by warranty. We have a similar system, which means if you put the VDC in R, okay, put the foot on the brake, press the accelerator to flat out, it'll rev just to 4,000 RPM, drop the clutch, and that will give you your performance. You can do it 4 times, one after another. Okay, and then the transmission warning light will come on, and then you can't drive it until the whole system cools down. It will not operate unless the engine is to normal working temperature, okay, and it will not operate if it's too hot. So if you do it 2 times, for instance, it's a very hot day or whatever, it will not work the 3rd and 4th if it believes the transmission system is too hot, or the oils and fluids. And to cool it down, all you need to do is drive it for a couple of miles, okay, 6 gear, 50 to 60 miles an hour. That will cool it down, and then you can use the system again. But it is covered by warranty, and it is official now. Okay, right. Now we've got all this extra power. We've also been doing some work to fine-tune on the way the car handles. Now, I can't tell you how well this car handles, but I'm sure if any of you have read Evo magazine, they've had it for quite a couple of weeks. Is that right? 2 or 3 weeks they've had it? Not quite, but they've had a significant amount of time in it. And what they've said, this car actually handles much better than the existing one. Turns in better, and you tend to be relying less on the very clever four-wheel drive electronics that this car has, the way it shifts torque. It feels as though you're driving it rather than it's driving you. It feels a much more together car. We've been able to fine-tune it by, well, first of all, we found potential flex areas. And what we've done, we've put a strut bracing that goes from turret to turret all the way around here. That's carbon composite material with an aluminium honeycomb lining, so that's adding some stiffness to the front of the vehicle. We've also added strengthening to the actual dash panel itself. Now, because we've made the whole chassis a little bit stiffer, it means we've been able to fine-tune the suspension a little bit more. We've got new dampers, they're a much more efficient damper. They're still Damptronic, you can still adjust them from inside the cockpit, but they're a much more efficient damper. We've uprated the springs at the front, the different roll bar. We've changed the caster angle at the front, which means that the car will self-centre a little bit better than it did before. And at the rear, we've played with the geometry. We've actually changed the roll centre, and we've changed the angle of toe just slightly. So that combination has really, really changed how the car handles, really made a significant difference. And we've been able to do that. That fine-tuning is because we've been able to stiffen the chassis. Once you've stiffened the chassis, then you can look at that fine-tuning to help help that a little bit, the wheels also now about 4.4 of a kilo lighter per wheel. There are different wheels, and it means if you make the wheel lighter, you reduce the unsprung weight, what we call the unsprung weight. It means that the suspension has not got to control something as heavy. The lighter it controls, it means it can work better. Okay, it also means there's less rotational mass, so it's going to help with the acceleration. So wheels and suspension, all those things added together, okay, make the car much nicer to handle. Okay, let's have a look around the side. Let's have a look at these wheels. These are new wheels, 10 spoke instead of 6 spoke. They have this colour, which is called, and it's a real mouthful, it's Mega Blue Black Chrome. All right. That's the colour. All right, I didn't write it, but Mega Blue Black. But as you can see, they've really got a beautiful lustre to it. I think there's a special 5 paint system that goes on it, but it really does look well. We've got a new knurling on the side because you see, particularly with this launch control, we have this special grip element, if you like. It grips the tyre. The knurling, it's a new knurling on the wheel to hold the tyres in place, which were built in because of the actual increased loads of the way this car will accelerate. As I say, the lighter got a new tyre. It's the same marker, Dunlop SP Sport Max. It sounds exactly the same, but the tread pattern is different, sidewall construction is different, and the compound is different. Okay, now these tyres can be used on old GTRs, but you can't put the old GTR tyres on this car. Okay, now this is all we recommend from manufacturer. We know sometimes people put other tyres on, but this is what we recommend as a manufacturer. This is what comes with the car. We won't sell anything else as a manufacturer. Okay, also the front discs we've increased by 10 millimetres. Okay, just so instead of 380 millimetres, which is the size of a wheel for some cars, we've actually increased it to 390 millimetres. Okay, so it just gives us a little bit of extra braking for high speed work, get less fade, okay, more brake pressure. Now, coming to the rear, do you want to come round to the rear and just have a look what's going on around here? We talked about this little diffuser here at the rear. As you can see, if you compare this against the vehicles that you have out there, you'll see that you've heard all about double diffusers and stuff like that with Formula One, and this is what we have here, just that little bit extra. All right, and that's what's given us that extra slippery underneath area. And in fact, we also noticed we've got a new grille here, and we've actually got grills on the side there as well, and they're there to allow hot air to dissipate from around the transmission area and exhaust, because that is possibly an issue with our car, is this heat soak that we get. And in fact, under this under tray we have another, what we call these Naca Ducts, which is the same as the ducts you see on the bonnet, sitting underneath basically where the gear lever is. Okay, and that's actually forcing cold air down along the transmission tunnel to cool the gearbox and transmission, because I say everything is loaded into the rear of this car, and also cool the exhaust system, and that actually is improving this element of heat soak into the cockpit and into the boot area. You notice the actual tailpipes here, they've actually increased by 10 millimetres, same aperture size, but we've just got a slightly bigger exhaust just to give it that sort of rear presence. Brake lights now both come on together rather than single before, both come on together, and we also have a fog lamp built into the rear diffuser. Okay. Also, there's a little leather pull strap inside the boot there. It's just like that. It's just that big. That's what I'm inside the car. Everything that we have here is the same as before in terms of the switchgear. There is a lot more carbon fibre used rather than magnesium touches or even dark metal finish. So if you compare this to what we have outside, you'll see we've sort of toned it down quite considerably. Also, you'll notice that the leather stitching or the leather work that we have around the multifunction display is much more plumper, feels much more, substantial. The stitching is much more uniform. The seats themselves, these bucket seats, they're slightly got much more bolstering on than the existing ones that we have, and also the premium leather seats that we have, again, bigger squab areas, slightly different shape. You'll find they're probably a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so in terms of lots of touches inside this car, when you look at it and look at all the trim detail, we've sort of toned it down, make it look more subtle, particularly with the carbon fibre finish, looks much more sporting. Now this car will retail now at £69,950. That's including 20% VAT. Okay, which at the moment that would look at about, if we looked at premium edition, it's about £8,700 more than premium edition. But however, if you adjusted it, if we sold this at 17.5% VAT, then the difference would be about £7,250. Now another reason why the price is different, when people think, whoa, there's a lot more performance here, there's a lot more gone into the car, but also we're struggling a bit against the yen in terms of exchange, so we've had to include that element as well. But in terms of performance, when you look at this car and you compare it with anything out there, there's no contest. In terms of price, for power, for performance, this is the GTR, ladies and gentlemen. So please do have a look around, enjoy it, ask any questions you wish, and we'll do our very best to answer them. Thank you very much. Thank you.